Hello and welcome. I'm Ed, and my wife Mary and I are Branch Davidian Seventh-day Adventists. Mary's away for one more lesson, helping my daughter and son-in-law who just gave birth to our first grandchild, Vivian. We're excited you're joining us today. We present or expound on a principle or belief related to the SDA Sabbath School Quarterly each week. The Sabbath School lesson for this quarter is on the book of Isaiah. This week's lesson is entitled, When Your World is Falling Apart, and deals with Isaiah chapter 7. Wednesday's lesson is entitled Sign of a Son and discusses Isaiah 7:14, which reads, Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. The lesson then reads, Nowhere does the Old Testament point out a fulfillment of this important sign, as it has done for the signs given to other people such as Gideon. The lesson then goes on to lay out 4 possible fulfillments of this Emmanuel prophecy. Today, we are also going to look at multiple fulfillments of this prophecy. First, we need to remind ourselves that Ellen White said, to say that a passage means just this and nothing more, that you must not attach any broader meaning to the words of Christ than we have in the past, is saying that which is not actuated by the Spirit of God. The truth, as it is in Jesus, is capable of constant expansion, of new development, and like its divine author, it will become more precious and beautiful. It will constantly reveal deeper significance and lead the soul to aspire for more perfect conformity to its exalted standard. Such understanding of the truth will elevate the mind and transform the character to its divine perfection. So we can see that there are indeed multiple meanings to various passages of Scripture, and this one is no exception. So let's start out by reading the prophecy in a fuller context. Starting in verse 10, it reads, Moreover, the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, Ask a sign for yourself from the Lord your God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, nor will I test the Lord. Then he said, Hear now, O house of David. Is it a small thing for you to weary men, but will you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that you dread will be forsaken by both her kings. The Lord will bring the king of Assyria upon you and your people and your father's house. Days that have not come since the day of Ephraim departed from Judah. Isaiah 7:10-17. As the lesson points out, at the time this prophecy was given by Isaiah, Israel was planning to confederate with the pagan nation of Syria to attack her brother kingdom, Judah. King Ahaz of Judah was very afraid of this pending attack, and God told the house of David not to be afraid as long as their faith in God remained firm. Verse 9. Both Syria and Israel, or Ephraim, the northern 10-tribe kingdom, were prophesied to soon be overthrown by the Assyrians, before the child Emmanuel would learn to refuse the evil and choose the good, and also before the soon-to-be-born child of Isaiah's, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, learned to cry, My father and my mother, Isaiah 8:3-4. The thing Ahaz feared, the alliance between Syria and Israel and their plan to attack Judah, did not come to pass, as Assyria instead made quick work of them both. This is the prophecy's immediate fulfillment. See 1 Chronicles 5:26 and 2 Kings 15:29. And since the purpose of Emmanuel in Isaiah's prophecy was to function as a sign for when Assyria would end the confederacy between Israel and Syria, Christ being antitypical Emmanuel shows that there must also be an antitype of these other entities in the prophecy. Remember, the original confederacy between Israel and Syria ended hundreds of years before Jesus was born, so he couldn't have been a sign of the end of that confederacy. Just like ancient Babylon has an antitypical counterpart in the Christian era, so must the entities in Isaiah's prophecy of Emmanuel. If there is an antitypical Emmanuel, there must be an antitype of the entities concerning whom he is a sign. Just to keep things clear, here is what was happening in Isaiah's day. Israel and Judah were two separate kingdoms. Israel had apostatized from God and formed an alliance with the pagan nation Syria. This alliance of Israel and Syria decided to team up against Judah. This made Ahaz scared, so God sent Isaiah to tell him that things will be okay. The confederacy of Israel and Syria would not succeed against Judah. In fact, their confederacy would end very soon. To show how soon, God gave a sign. The sign is that a young woman would bear a child, Emmanuel, and before the child would be old enough to refuse evil and choose what is good, the Assyrian Empire would invade Syria and Israel and bring to an end their confederacy. Given that Emmanuel is a sign of this event between these nations, to have an antitypical Emmanuel wouldn't make sense unless there is also an antitypical Judah, Israel, Syria, and Assyria. So, who are these antitypical nations? Well, since Israel was a people who apostatized from following the true God who joined with a pagan nation, the antitypical Israel in the Christian era must be the Christians who apostatized from following the true God to join with a pagan state. And just as the Israelite-Syrian confederacy joined together against Judah, the church-state confederacy of the Middle Ages joined together against the true Christians who continue to follow God. Assyria, then, the empire who brought the dissolution of the union of Israel and Syria, must find its counterpart in Protestants who brought about the dissolution of the church-state union that ruled during the Dark Ages. Also, since according to the type, this dissolution was to happen before Emmanuel would know to refuse the evil and choose the good, Emmanuel has to have an antitype that reaches into the period after the Dark Age church and state union came to an end. And since Emmanuel evidently didn't know to refuse the evil and choose the good for the whole duration of that union, and even after, the antitypical Emmanuel has to represent more than Jesus as an individual. As Thursday's lesson correctly says, the word Emmanuel in Hebrew means God is with us. Emmanuel thus represents those who truly have God with them. Christ, yes, but also those who follow Christ. The type indicates that at first Emmanuel wouldn't know to refuse the evil and choose the good, but at some point, after the Israel-Syria confederacy came to an end, the implication is that Emmanuel would learn to choose the good and refuse the evil. Just so, the antitypical Emmanuel in the Christian era represents those Christians who truly follow God, who keep up with present truth. At first, they are immature and don't know to choose the good and refuse the evil. But at some point after the dissolution of the church-state confederacy of the Dark Ages, it is expected that they will learn to refuse the evil and choose the good. That is, to live righteous lives, free from sin. As previously mentioned, Isaiah 8, 3-4 speaks of another child as a sign, Maher-shalal-hash-baz, to be born to Isaiah and the prophetess. Isaiah 8:4 says that before this child knows how to cry out, "My father or my mother," the wealth of Damascus, Syria, and the plunder of Samaria, Israel, will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Isaiah 8:4. It makes sense that the child would be a sign of this event, since his name means something like speedy plunder, swift pillage. So here we see two children born in Judah as signs. One a sign that God is with those who follow him each step of the way, who eat the butter and honey of truth, and the other a sign of the fate to befall those who apostatize from God. An antitype, Emmanuel represents those who keep pace with freshly revealed light and who will thus eventually learn to refuse evil and choose good, while Maher-shalal-hash-baz represents the other class in the church, those who bear the name and character of previous apostates and who don't yet know how to even cry out to their father and mother. Notice that the antitypical Emmanuel learns to know to refuse the evil and choose the good, meaning prior to learning the lesson, he didn't always refuse the evil and he didn't always choose the good. This is one reason why Jesus could not be the perfect fulfillment of Emmanuel, because he never sinned. Since Assyria overthrew the Syrian-Israel confederacy before Emmanuel learned to choose the good and refuse the evil, that obviously means Emmanuel learns this important lesson after the confederacy is dissolved. In antitype, this means those keeping up with present truth, the antitypical Emmanuel, were still not consistently refusing evil and choosing good during the Dark Ages. It is only sometime after the church-state confederacy of the Dark Ages is over that Emmanuel learns this. Those represented by Emmanuel, who lived when ecclesiastical Rome fell, were spiritually too young. They were not far enough along in time and corresponding Bible knowledge and spiritual progress to discriminate the evil from the good. Consequently, they must attain to this knowledge in the Assyrian Protestant period. I'm sure none of us want to be among those represented by Maher Shalal Hashbaz. We want to be among those represented by Emmanuel. But more than that, we want to be mature, to learn to refuse the evil and choose the good. We need to grow as a baby on the milk of the Word, 1 Peter 2:2, and to grow past that to maturity, being able to handle the meat of the Word, as it says in Hebrews 5:14, which reads, "Anyone who lives on milk, being still an infant, is not acquainted with the teaching about righteousness, but solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil." Isaiah 28:9 asks, "Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine?" Then answering his own question, it declares, "Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts." Isaiah 7 and 8 teach that the church, collectively born in the 1st century AD, is today at the point where she needs to pass from her childhood and feed upon strong meat so she can finally choose the good and refuse the evil. Ellen White said, "Those who walk in the light will progress. They will grow up to the full stature of men and women in Jesus Christ. This is the result of sanctification through the truth, and this is what God requires of all. Truth is progressive, and those who are preparing for the last great day will go forward in accordance with the accumulated light which shines upon them from the prophecies and from the lessons of Christ and the apostles." As time progresses, the truth and the Christian advance accordingly with it. The message of justification by faith, the third angel's message in Verity, the Review and Herald, April 1st, 1890, which was rejected in 1888, Selected Messages, Book 1, page 234 through 235, is here again in fuller revelation. It is time for the church to fully understand and live the message of justification by faith, first presented in 1888 by Jones and Wagner, although also taught by Ellen White before that, Sermons and Talks, Volume 1, page 116, and is now being presented with accumulated light. In other words, the strong meat is here. Please see our study linked in the description below and in the end screen entitled Justification by Faith, A Sinless Life by Trent Wilde, and also see War News Forecast by Victor Houteff, also linked in the description below, to learn more about the prophecy of Isaiah 7 and 8. Thank you for staying with us through the entire video. We invite you to visit our website, www.bdsda.com, to learn more about who we are and, just as important, who we are not. Please join us each week as we will continue to offer new and interesting insights for your Sabbath School studies. God bless, and from Mary, many blessings.